Stacks, and today we're going over Stellarknight Demise. This is a list I hadn't updated in like a month, I think. Originally I picked this deck up because I'm just such a huge nerd for the Hidden Arsenal lore. I'm a huge fan of that. I've always loved Constellars, Gustos, Gishkis, Gym Knights, Lavals. I love Mist Valleys, Worms, like you name it. I love them, and I consider these guys as kind of like part of the Hidden Arsenal lore because Satel Knights are actually the brethren of the Constellars. So these are basically the future generation of Constellars. Think of Constellars as their grandparents. So yeah, I really like the deck, and honestly, the main thing that inspired me to pick up this deck was I saw Deltaros. I saw this video of Deltaros. It was Cleaforts, Infernoids, and Shaddolls. I'm talking about Cleaforts, Infernoids, and Shaddolls all throwing down, fighting each other. And then out of nowhere, the Necros pop out. And they pull out Trishula. All three of the Ice Barrier dragons, and they start going to work with Infernoid Tierra. Like the three Ice Barriers were fighting Tierra by herself. Like she was putting in work. Like she was handling them too. And the Necros started losing, and out of nowhere, pop comes Deltaros and starts maxing out like all the Infernoids that were behind Tierra. Like he handled every Infernoid that wasn't Tierra, while the three Ice Barrier dragons, the three Necros, which are the Ice Barriers, Brionic, Trishula, Gungnir, were handling Tierra. And I was like, man, I have to pick up this deck. I really want to see what this is about. And so we started basically with the Wing and a Prayer. We just had this guy, and originally the deck wasn't that good, but it came up to be one of those consistent helmet decks where it's kind of just like an anti-meta rogue deck. And the idea of it is to slow your opponent down so much that you actually are playing faster than him. So you can imagine how much you have to actually slow your opponent down, because this deck is not very like turbo-y or spammy. So we're running 3 Deneb. This is the star of the deck. Sometimes 1 Deneb has got me through all of my resources where I'll have like 2 dead Denebs in my deck and no more targets to search. And then that's when Pot of Desires is like the most clutch. It's even clutch once you resolve Deneb like twice. Because honestly, all I want in rotation is the form of Deneb, Altair, and then at least the Vega. Either a Vega or a Sammy. Like there are games where I just had like 3 monsters and then just 3 monsters for my deck, just in rotation off of Call the Haunted and just looping them, and that was it. Like I didn't have no other monsters in hand. The other monsters were still in my deck, and I was just like living off of like 3 monsters. It wasn't Deneb, it was just like 3 Satellar's, and I wasn't able to get into my Deneb, so I just kept using Altair and just kept resummoning the All Cyan burn for 1,000, off of Call the Haunted. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, pretty much you run a really, really low monster count, so you can run a lot of traps that say no to Yugioh. And also so that you can basically, abuse your card of Demise the most, because with Demise, the idea if you're running Demise, you don't want to draw too many monsters, you don't have to discard them. But another cool thing about this deck is similar to Yosinju's, the Satel Knights actually have a way to play around the card of Demise in-face thing. If any Satellar's get sent to the grave off of card of Demise, they actually act as Call the Haunted fodder and or Trivier fodder, so it's actually good. But moving forward, 3 Altair. Same thing with the Deneb. I actually only really need 1 to live off of. It's nice to have, the extra ones, but like I said, there's games where I've literally like been in such a bad situation. And I'm talking about this is when you're like in a bad situation, when you're just using the same Deneb and the same Altair, and that's it. And then it's like, if your opponent DD Crows the Deneb, it's like, it's over. So yeah, but there have been situations where I just kind of just like lived off of 1 Altair. So effectively, you get a lot of value out of each monster, even though you run a small monster count. They're actually able to just keep recurring their cells. So you work with a small amount of monsters, and they'll just give you like a lot out of those little bit of monsters. 2 ukuleles, 1 Vega, and 1 Alsam, just for the burning. For grand game especially, just keep summoning him off of Call the Haunted, keep burning for a grand. Especially when your opponent has those boards where you just like can't even out it. But then you're like, wait a minute, this guy's got, he's got 1,500 life points. All I have to do is just summon a Sam and go into combo, and I got game. So it's really good. Very, very clutch. And the last monsters are actually 2 copies of Grim Reaper, because artifacts are too clutch for this format. Even for True Kings, this was the call for the True Kings. I don't really care about them having main deck beaters. I honestly just care about them summoning Lagia, Doka. I care about them making Rank Knights, summoning the Ultimate Zokin off of the Dinlong, Dinglong, Search the Counter Trap, all that bullcrap. So artifacts are just a great way to counter the True King Dinos. They counter, the Zodiac playstyle. They counter the Metaphors archetype well. You know, it's a counter to so many different meta relevant decks. It's just so good. Even for Paleos, because if they can't go into their totally awesomes, their little traps are just 1200, just little guys. So yeah, it's just really strong. And if even in the Paleo matchup, if you can get that one turn where like where your opponent basically he has like three Paleo normal traps and he has like a grave loaded with frogs, and you flip that Sanctum, and then that one turn was all you needed to summon, just summon your monsters and just attack over everything he had. Then flip Call the Haunted the next turn, basically Sanctum him again. It's just crazy. Like it's so powerful, so versatile. It's just this guy just wins games. He really just the decks he doesn't hurt is Infernoids and even Lightsworns. Like I buried Lightsworns and they still put up Judgment Dragon. So he doesn't really hurt Infernoids and Lightsworns. And then what's another deck? Blue Eyes also. Blue Eyes, they don't really even need their extra deck because they're main deck beaters. But that's the monster count, just 12. Really simple. Didn't want to overdo stuff. It would have been 10 monsters, or I could have switched the 2 sites for Thunder King Ryo. He originally was my anti-meta option, but I thought to myself, Scythe is just more. He's more devastating. He needs more of like a sack than Thunder King is, because I actually do a fair bit of searching in my deck, and off of dualities and stuff like that. So Thunder King wouldn't have helped me enough. It would have just hurt me a bit too much. Moving on with spells, we got 3 Demise, 2 Desires, the 2 Duality, and the 1 Rhoda. Spells, I wanted to run originally 9 blue cards, which would have been 3, 3, 3, and then the 1. I'm sorry, so that's 10. But I originally wanted to run 3 Duality, 3 Demise, and 3 Desires. So what I ended up doing was cut 1 of each for 2 more traps that we'll get into later. But yeah, pretty much all your spells do effectively is help you get to your monster count faster, and also let you decked in, and at the same time give you the chance to net free like alphas and strikes and stuff like that. Let you just dig for more traps. Also, like when you have those games where you open 5 back rows, somehow your opponent played through all 5 of your back row, all your barriers, all your strikes, everything. Then you play a card like Demise or Desires and then draw more traps, and you're still good. Even after he wasted so much resources, you still got more back row. So yeah, spells are really good. Moving forward, traps. Alpha is just so good. This is one of my most favorite traps of all time. It's a very, very durable trap. And the thing with back row is a lot of the times it's gonna be like 1-for-1 exchanges, especially like cards like Compulsory Evacuation Device and Book of Moon, for example. Those are perfect examples. Those are back rows where it's like they hit one thing. And the one thing you hit, yeah, that does stop one card that your opponent had a potential play with, but you lost a card and your opponent lost a card. And I look at it this way: if we're in a grind game and for every card my opponent plays, I have to lose a card, just for him to basically just to stop him from that play, and I have no field presence, nobody's winning here, because it's kind of just like we're both in a down position because we're both low on resources, and then we both don't have a field presence. So like I just hate card for card exchanges. So that's another reason why I love Alpha, because it potentially it forces your opponent to take an automatic neg and resulting you in a +1, which thoroughly can become a +2 if you send any of the Stellarknight XYZs, from field to grave. They'll special, so you can net a draw off of this, and then Trivier, Altair, Deneb, search, and get a free rank 4. So you'll get like a free search, free field presence, free rank 4, and a free draw, and a free negate. Too much good stuff in one card. So this is the ideal example of winning. Like when you play cards like this is a winning card. A card, for example, like Time Space Trap Hole, that card, sometimes it can be a losing card where it's like it costs you more to stop your opponent than what your opponent lost when you stopped him. It wasn't even worth it to begin with. So yeah, that's why I just try to play traps like this where it's like it's potential to take more than just a -1 from your opponent. Like it can especially like when you wait for your opponent to go too far into his place to where like he's committed too much resources to his board now, and then it's like if you stop him, he like really has nothing to do, versus like where you stop him early, and then that way he at least knows I'm gonna just save my resources and try to do this next turn. But where like if you just try to save this and then read your opponent right, flip this at the right time, he can take a potential -4, especially like when he invested so many resources in that combo, and then like in the middle of the combo, the most important step, you negate the most important step, which was the ideal, what he was trying to get to. Bam, shut it down. He takes complete negs, and not only that, you get pluses. So this sometimes can force my opponent to lose 3 cards and also allow me to gain free cards. Like, not just the draw one, free monsters on field, free search. So Alpha's like the best strat, honestly. It's Solemn Judgment, and then we've got 3 Strike. It's basically just a weaker version of Alpha. Effectively, they do the same thing, which is negate. A lot of times, I don't even find myself using Strike on summon a lot anymore. Most of the time, I just use it on effect. With this deck, most monsters that get summoned, I kind of already am able to deal with them, even if they're on field. Like, I'm able to either bounce them or, just board wipe them. So most of the time, like I said, I just use Strike on effects. Because there's certain effects that I just really don't like. And I'd rather let my opponent, let his monster hit the field. Unless, of course, it's like a dino where they could chain miscellaneous. But I'd much rather let my opponent's monster hit the field with him thinking he's okay. And so basically, if he's like summon's good, and you're like, he's like response, no response, he's going to assume you don't have an out anymore. So he's probably going to go in. He's probably going to overcommit. And then that's where Strike is going to be insane. And then we have 3 Sanctum because it's just so clutch. This is like legit the real lose 1 turn right here. This is one of the main reasons why I hardly ever have to strike a summon, because there's hardly any summons to strike. And it's just really, really versatile, especially being effectively an out to any problematic monsters or just back rows in general, because you can force your opponent to pop this with, your Durandal and then make him take complete negs. So this is another card like Alpha, where you can force your opponent to take negs and you'll still get pluses. So Alpha and Sanctum are kind of like the most broken traps. And Sanctum is the artifact engine period is even more broken in this deck because we have Call the Haunted. So it's like we have unlimited artifact sites because we can just summon Triviate, bounce Call the Haunted, next turn set Call the Haunted, flip it again, barrier you. There's actually a duel where I ended up flipping not flipping Sanctum, but flipping Scythe 3 turns in a row, and those 3 turns, between those 3 turns, I was able to push for 8,000, and it was just like those 3 turns were it. It's crazy, but yeah, Sanctum is just so powerful. I would say that Barrier is a weaker card than Sanctum in this one aspect, in the sense that Sanctum can prevent your opponent from summoning from the extra deck, just period. And D Barrier, you can call XYZ and they can still fuse. But D Barrier can also have like more of a benefit than Sanctum because it's versatile as basically being a breakthrough skill, or you could think of it as Brotherhood, the Fire Fist Tiger King, because it negates the effect of all monsters that you call. So it's better than breakthrough. So sometimes you need that, like when your opponent has a field full of Xyz monsters like Zodiacs, they make their combo just full of a bunch of like random XYZs. You flip this, they chain the one Trident, whatever, and then after that nothing. All their XYZs are 0 attack monsters, which basically means you have potential for a lot of damage. So D Barrier does come up. But Sanctum, just all in all, is more powerful because preventing your opponent from that extra deck, sometimes it can be a lot stronger than saying you can't do one thing. So yeah, basically you just run the Barrier and the Sanctum because you want more effective odds to open up with chances to prevent your opponent from ever going into his main play, especially for linear decks like Zodiac is the prime example, where they have just one summoning mechanic. Barrier or Sanctum will do. So basically you're just running 6 copies of lose 1 turn. And effectively, we now have 9 copies of the Sanctum, because Call of the Haunted does the same exact thing Sanctum does, except whereas you're summoning from deck with Sanctum, and Call, you're obviously summoning the artifact from grave. Same thing though, and a lot of times I actually do use my Call for my artifacts, and sometimes I get mad at myself because I think, instead of preventing my opponent from being stunned a turn, I could have got Altair Deneb and got a free Altair, so that way next turn I can normal Altair and make a rank 4 play. But then it was like, preventing my opponent from making a play, all in all, got me more advantage than, that possible chance of a rank 4 play. So this is just basically like, Call the Haunted is like another floodgate. So the idea with all these traps, even Call the Haunted, is all 15 of these traps is meant to keep the board clear. Call the Haunted, it's more of like a recovery play for, the snowball effect, where you just keep using it, keep bouncing it to hand, never ending. Like, there are games where I'll live off of one Call the Haunted and never see the other 2, and the one call will like make so many plays. But it's not just for the recovery plays. Like I was saying, you can use it to flip your Scythe. So effectively, Call the Haunted can be another real trap. Like, Call the Haunted most of the time isn't like a real trap because it doesn't do anything to your opponent. But when you abuse it with the Scythe, like, this is like a real trap now. So it's like, this can keep the board clear just as well as Sanctum can keep the board clear. So we have 15 traps that ideally you want to draw these 15 when you're going first. So, if you have field presence, you're going first. You've got all the traps to answer any play your opponent might try to make, negate and stop all his summons. So as long as you can keep the board clear, it's pretty much like Volcanic, just nuke, poke, burn. And then moving forward, so we have 15 traps to keep the board clear. and then we have 9 traps that clear the board if we weren't able to keep it clear. So we have 3 Quaking, 2 Storming, 2 Drowning Mirror Forces, 1 regular Mirror Force, and also 1 T Tribute. And sometimes this is a trap where it's like there's no way around it. You have to play into it. So that's why I kind of wanted the. It originally was going to be double regular Mirror Force, but I decided to cut one of the Mirror Forces for T Tribute just so it can increase my odds of board wiping even more often, because the torrential tribute, it's harder to play around than it is with Mirror Force. Mirror Force, you could put your monsters in defense and then attack with one. With this, sometimes you just like have no choice but to play into it. So the similar concept with the first 15 traps that I showed you were to keep the board clear. These traps not only keep the board clear, but they effectively act as outs when I'm going second. So if my opponent got to go first and he got to establish a field presence, what I want to do is open with the card like a Mirror Force and something else like Alpha and Solemn Strike. That way, whatever board they make, I can just out it and then keep the board clear from there. So like once you resolve a Mirror Force, the board is clear. You want to use cards like Sanctum and Strike to prevent your opponent from ever having a field presence. So if you play this deck right, your opponent should not actually be able to summon anything. But yeah, so these are great for clearing field presence, and also they're great outs when you're going second. Like if you're going second and your opponent made something like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, True King, VFD the Beast, Evil Zor Lagia, and then he what's another super powerful boss monster in that deck? Let's say he made double True King. He made double True King, VFD the Beast. He made Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. He made Evil Zor Lagia. And let's just say it's overpowered. So now he has a True King on top of all that. So he has all those crazy boss monsters, right? Storming, Alpha, everything's done. There's no way to play around it. Even if they tried to negate the Mirror Force, that's why cards like Alpha and Solemn Strike are more deadly for you to board wipe, because if your opponent tries to stop the board wipe, you can stop them from stopping you. So it's really clutch. That's why you want to draw cards when you're going second and you have a hand with any Mirror Force and a Strike or an Alpha or even a D barrier, you can effectively just clear any board you want. So it's really good. And yeah, it gives you great synergy. So even though this deck isn't supposed to go second, when you go second, you're not really worried about anything, because you have so many ways to just basically make your opponent just waste so many resources. It's crazy. Because once they see 2 or 3 Mirror Forces in the grave, they'll stop playing around Mirror Force. They'll be like, you know what, he's used all his Mirror Forces, I'm safe. And then they attack into another one. Then it gets them so scared that the whole game they're playing around Mirror Force. So they're missing all their opportunities and chances to get the maximum damage. So they may lose into time just because they're scared of a Mirror Force. So sometimes you can win just because of the Mirror Forces. So if you think that the Mirror Forces is too much, or if it's overdone, or you should cut it, this is my deck anyways. I'm not trying to be rude, but it is my deck. Let's just be honest. It's my deck, so I can run what I want. You don't have to run the Mirror Forces, but I highly recommend for Stellarknights, especially me being a Stellarknight player, the Mirror Forces increase your chances of success exponentially. And then basically the 4th barrier. But I like this guy a lot more than Call the Haunted, because sometimes you want to summon your dudes in defense. If your opponent's attacking you, you want to flip something like this to save your life points and wall up. So yeah, 45 card main deck actually. I know it seems strange, but my Stellarknights, I never actually ran them as a 40 card deck to begin with, because there's not really any play that you want to open up with every time except for Deneb. And to me, it was there's a lot of games where I don't open with Deneb and still win. So the 5 cards that I could take out would just be 5 Mirror Forces. I can completely cut the Mirror Forces down to just the Quaking. So I could just take out those Mirror Forces to increase my chances of drawing a Deneb. But every time I see a Mirror Force in my hand, I'm a bit more happy seeing that in my hand than I am seeing Deneb, because sometimes Mirror Force can win you game, whereas Deneb is not always going to be ideal, especially when you're going against a deck that has so many boss monsters that negate your effects that, your Deneb just gets negated. So yeah, that's basically the reason why I run the 45, is because I didn't want to take anything out for the Mirror Forces, so I just added the 5 Mirror Forces in. And so every time I draw a Mirror Force, think of the Mirror Force as this should have been another card, but when you draw Mirror Force, it's never bad. So that's why. If you're going to add cards in that are good. That's my theory. Extra deck, the Pleiades, because Durandal. This guy, I actually side deck him, because there's sometimes, it's a lot of times where I have too much back row and too much good back row. And it's I can't afford to lose any of it. And by making my opponent pop my own back row, if he targets the strike just by luck and pops that strike, I could lose just because of that. So I like to side him. because when we go into side decking, whenever I side deck with this deck, I only side out traps. I don't side out any monsters, any spells. I just side out traps. So I'll side out, you know, like 15 back rows, put this guy in, and then, you know, he's more versatile then. But yeah, just the 1 rank 5s, the Pleiades. Honestly, because he's a Constellar, and Constellars and, you know, Satellars, they're related. Same thing with this guy. He's a Constellar, so yeah. I kind of just like these guys because they are Constellars. But moving forward, so 2 Trivier, she's a star player of the deck. Ideal, you want to run 3, but space issues. That's why I run Gusto Emerald. I originally was running her at 3. There are a lot of games where she is the only monster you make from the extra deck. And actually, a vast majority of my games, this is like all I make. I either make her or I make this just to still make this. Trivier is like the star of the deck. She just answers established board so well and, you know, takes cards from your opponent. She's like a guaranteed 21 to the face. So that's another thing that's really good with this deck is that it may not be able to OTK, but the damage that it's able to get, like the damage is guaranteed. So like Trivier, she's like guaranteed damage, you know, clear the board, 21 to the face. Yeah, she's really, really clutch. And there also are times where like I just basically, you know, I draw into a way to open Trivier. My opponent has like 1900 life points, for example, and then I just be like, you know what, I have call, flip the call, show him the Altair, so he sees this Trivier, he knows this game, and then, you know, just scoop it up from there. So maybe it actually was funny, like we're in a game where I just didn't even make Trivier, but I just told basically showed him that I had Trivier, and he knew that he had 19, so Trivier was game, so he just scooped it up, and I didn't have to waste any more time. And then of course the Deltaros, because he's just really, really good. Wanted to run more, but I basically it came down to this. Because his effect is not once per turn, you can actually use Deltaros like a floater. Now, here's something that a lot of people misunderstand. Stellarknight Deltaros and Trivier do not have the same exact floating effect. Trivier has to have XYZ material, and she has to be sent to the graveyard. That means that if you negate Trivier's summon, she does not have to hit the field, basically, is what I'm saying. So her effect will still go off. So if you negate Trivier's summon, her effect will go off in grave, because she still had XYZ material. So like if you strike, you know, her effect or her summon, whatever, stop her when she goes off, she'll still float in special from grave. And with Deltaros though, he has to be sent from field to graveyard. So that's the difference between the two. One actually has to hit the field, but the cool thing is, you know, he does protect his own summon. So potentially the only thing that actually stops him is strike. So that's the cool thing with him. But they're not once per turn. And Deltaros, because he says when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, he's actually more versatile than Trivier. Because Trivier, you know, basically she has to have XYZ material. Whereas Deltaros, you can normal summon Stellarknight Altair, and look it up, man. This is not an illegal play. So I'm saying that so we don't have to argue, because I don't want to waste time arguing anyways. So we'll normal summon this guy, right? And special him. If he leaves from the field to the graveyard, he doesn't have to have XYZ materials as long as you summon him the proper way the first time. If he leaves, you'll be able to use his effect. So there are a lot of games where I'll go call the Haunted Altair and then summon him from grave, just because I'm trying to, you know, float to survive OTKs. So it's really clutch. This guy is just super duper good. I use him like an engine, and like I was saying, it's not once per turn, so he's basically just like lets you summon from hand or deck. And if you guys think of line, look it up. It's actually legal. You can actually, if you XYZ summon Deltaros the proper way, you can actually summon him from grave, and he'll get his effect off if he's sent from field to grave, special from hand or deck. So that's why I'm running him at 1. Because I just like to abuse him. And it came out to space also. The Utopia, Ragnar Miniac. If you make this guy right, he actually should not be outed. If you make him on 5 materials, there is no out in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! that actually deals with him. If he's unaffected by card effects and he can't be destroyed by battle, you have to Kaiju him, or, you know, Lava Golem or Raw Spear mode. But because those are all normal or special summons, and he says your opponent can no more special summon, this guy actually is I don't know if there's any other Yu-Gi-Oh card that's like that, but this guy's like the only monster in Yu-Gi-Oh that's actually like able to be completely invincible, untouchable for, you know, like 2 turns, which is actually clutch, because within those 2 turns, you basically have the chance to do as much damage as possible, so it can get you game. And then moving forward with 2 Emerald, 1 Sook. I like Sook a lot, especially like when you're running just basically a trap-based deck, and your monster count's so low. So like I like the idea of like pitching, you know, a dead duality to draw 2 traps, or pitching an alpha when I don't have a Satonova alpha target just to draw 2 more. Or just basically the idea is 1 trap becomes 2. So this guy effectively lets you just reload your back row even more, similar to Demise and Demise desires duality. Play through your back row. You want to draw more back row, so you can just keep going helmet mode. And then Castel and Samurai. The Samurais here is because, yeah, like I was saying, You know, there are games where you actually summon this guy, the Ragnominiad, and then like it was times where I had the opportunity to do, you know, maximum damage in OTK, but I wasn't able to get just enough damage, and then ended up losing. You know, and it was like I could have won if I did enough damage, so I decided to put this guy in. So like, you know, you can make him, your opponent, you know, sets one, passes, then you make this guy. Just having these two alone, you have 6,800, and you know, if your opponent can't out him the next turn, you just basically got game. But basically the idea is this guy lets you get more damage, so basically take advantage of the fact that you're able to do damage and do the maximum that you can while you still have a chance. So yeah, tell me what you guys think of the deck. If you're fans of Satellars, I think you guys are awesome. This is a rogue deck that doesn't get enough credit. It's a good deck. It's never going to be bad. Link format, this deck may just be one of the top contenders. And don't forget, 2015, this was the World Championship contender. And out of all the decks for that format, this got just never got touched on the ban list. Like, it never did. So this deck is still at full power. But yeah, I love the deck a lot. And yeah, tell me what you guys think again. And if you are dissatisfied with my card choices or don't like the cards that I'm running, I understand that. And, you know, I respect people's opinion. I'm not here to down talk anybody. But I'm not trying to hear no crap like, you're stupid, you're not supposed to run like this, or you're supposed to run it like this. Don't tell me what to do with my stuff, fam. It's mine. And honestly, I feel like if the way I run my deck bothers you so much to where like you feel like it's that bad, build it yourself. Do it how you want, and then you tell me how that works out for you. But don't tell me how to run my channel. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And again, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm gonna keep it 100. Honestly, I'm gonna just speak my mind like I always do. And thank you guys. Be safe. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. You'll be hearing from us soon. And I love y'all. We're going to do more to show appreciation. We appreciate y'all so much. You guys are like the best. We do this for y'all. Peace.